LaShay.
Hey.
Hey, everyone. Hey, I got a question for you guys before we get started. Let me see. Have your emotions ever got the best of you? I'm actually LaShay. Have your emotions ever got the best of you?
I can tell you 100% yes, they have.
Hey, hey, you guys, make sure you like, share, and comment. Make sure you're a part of this conversation. And let me know if your emotions have ever got the best of you. I know my emotions have got the best of me. I thought that I was going to be intelligent and, think my way through a thing. And I got there and, my emotions decided to do something different, Miss LaShay. And so the title of today's show is that's happened. The title of today's show. Let me find the title, Miss LaShay. I'm everywhere. Overcoming emotional obstacles. All right. So let's do our introductions. Who are you, ma'am?
Well, my name is LaShay Little, and I am the owner of Cherish Investments, which is a business development and digital marketing agency. I help entrepreneurs in order to create systems for the foundation of their business and create a marketing plan that is client focused. And a lot of times those entrepreneurs, they're emotional. They're emotional because they're investing a lot of their time, energy, their mental capacity into starting this business or running this business. So I'm so glad to be able to be on your podcast and just connecting those dots for entrepreneurs and everyone else out there.
And sharing your story. I think that last week we had a very candid discussion, and I'm so grateful that you were vulnerable enough to share, your perspective. And that's the thing I think is powerful in just bringing guests on, because not that I don't have a story, because I definitely have a story that I can share and that I do share and that I will share. But I think that just sharing your story and, definitely giving your perspective to the conversation and things like that, I think it was very much needed and, you know, I don't know, enlightening. So I just definitely appreciate that. And if you guys don't already know, I'm Shiela Little, your friend and expert leader in the field of changing lives. I am a PhD candidate in business psychology, a clinical social worker. I was 20 years as a clinical therapist. And I help people align, advance, and accelerate their life. And I do that by helping people stop doing the things that's preventing them from getting the life they desire and deserve. Hey, Dale. Hey, Lula. Thank you guys for your comments. So the question was, have your emotions ever got the best of you? Right? You want to share?
Yeah, definitely. So one thing about this is that this is not a destination that you're going to arrive to where you just are never overly emotional, where your emotions don't get better or don't stop happening. I think a lot of times we think, okay, when we're on this emotional journey, I'm trying to get to the place where I don't feel a way when someone does something to upset me, or if they do something that my mom's favorite word, disrespectful. In those moments when something happens, you're going to get emotional, but I think it's important to just have tools on how to deal with those moments. I can tell you in my personal life recently, the emotions have been flying. I don't know if it's something about the new year, but it feels like the further I go on my personal growth journey, and maybe it's just kind of the comparative, the contrast to other people in my life. And maybe I just start noticing more that they are not quite as far down their emotional journey as I am. And it's just been a lot of conflicts. It's been a lot of conflicts. And with recent conflicts that I've had, I know it went from anger to hurt to devastation. And then I had to just kind of bring myself back. And your favorite word, stories. What story? That I found myself now recently just asking myself, what story am I telling myself in this moment? What is the real root to my emotion? And what I find most often is that it's not even what the person did. It's that I they acted in a way that was contradictory to my vision of them. So, for example, if I had a friend and I expected my friend to be sensitive to my feelings in this conversation, and she says something that I feel is off the wall, I'm gonna get mad. Like, girl, you know better, right? You know better. Like, why would you even say that? Or why would you take that person's side? Don't you know we're friends? You're supposed to be on my side. What is this? So sorry, y'all. Giovanni is coming into the office. So that's what that
Giovanni is a tall dog. It's a big
Yes,
dog.
Giovanni is a very tall dog.
Mm-hmm.
But and I have that emotion, but that's me trying to push my vision of the world onto this person, expecting them to live in my head and view life the same way that I view it, view situations the same way that I viewed it. And when I started asking myself, okay, what story am I telling myself here? It made it a bit easier. And I would like for you to share that with them, because you taught me how to do that. And it was a tremendous help, because even in a lot of situations that I thought I was being enlightened in, and I thought that I was, being that higher brain functioning individual in that scenario, I really wasn't. I really wasn't. I was more so surface level, and then it would always push me into a place of retreat. Like, I would have the conversation, and then when I feel like you're not getting it, okay, well, I'm not going to let you push me into like the anger where I am physically angry, where we're arguing or anything like that. So I'm just going to retreat, and this is exactly why I don't deal with you. But once I started identifying the stories, I found it easier for me to still be able to maintain those relationships.
Yeah, yeah. So again, I think that was a great question, an opening question. Has your emotions ever got the best of you? Because I think that when we think about the emotions, we've been taught to leave the emotions in the other room.
Right.
They have no place here. They have, we're going to handle this task. We're going to be adults about this. And emotions have this very, I say, like sophisticated way of creeping in, right? Because it's like this little voice that's in your head that's like, you gonna let her say that? Oh yeah, she
That
just said that.
disrespectful. Yeah.
These little trigger words, right? Oh, I know that this ain't happening. So while this outside thing is happening, that you're just being rational and you're trying to contain yourself and all of that, there's an internal dialogue that's happening in the back of your mind. And if we're not aware of the internal dialogue, before you know it, you're not even responding to what's happening outside of you. You're actually now emotionally responding to and answering the internal conversation or narrative that's happening in your mind. Does that make sense?
No, it definitely does. And I love that you use the word trigger, because that's really what it is. And I didn't realize how, in so many certain situations, that I would feel emotions, how somebody using a word or somebody making a statement, or me feeling like, hey, you're kind of like leaving me out to dry, or as my mom said, you're being disrespectful, and how that word or that moment would trigger so many other emotions. And another thing that we've been talking a lot about is just having grace with yourself and giving yourself permission to feel all of these emotions. Like, the emotion itself is not the problem. It's our reactions to these emotions, because you'll react off of an initial emotion that you thought this person was being disrespectful, but realistically you felt like they were being inconsiderate, but you never gave yourself enough time to sit in it. Isn't that what you say? Sit in it or sit with it. So
Sit in it.
you end up just reacting off of that surface level emotion. And I think that, and that's something that came up in the podcast yesterday as well. There are levels to these things. And I think that's why it's really important to give yourself time to really analyze these emotions. Okay, what is the root cause? Because it's usually not just one thing. It's usually not just, this person made me sad, or this person made me mad, or this person makes me happy. It's usually a lot more to that.
Right. So, I'm the Google queen. So it's like, what is an emotional obstacle? So an emotional obstacle is when you're stuck. right? Emotions often take over your rational approach to problem solving, right? So you didn't came in, you had this thought, this rational way. I'm gonna go have this conversation, and y'all give me some likes and shares if you've, had this happen, right? That I'm gonna rationally go in. I'm gonna say this. So emotions take over your rational approach to problem solving, and you may think that that task may be the obstacle when the underlying emotion is really the corporate, right? It's the underlying emotion that's really the corporate, right? Because it wants to be seen, it wants to be recognized, you know. And this definitely happens in a relationship. I'm gonna say intimate relationships, because there's already a judgment if you've been in relationships of not being the loud one, not being the over responsive one, not being the right. And so you're like, okay, I'm going to have a calm conversation with you, right? And you didn't sit there for a couple of days, like, how I'm going to talk to him about this, or how I'm going to have this conversation with her about that, because I don't want them to think, right? That's the trigger, because I
Right.
don't want them to think that I'm being this or that, or between friends, right? I don't want her to think I'm being catty, or I don't want her to think I'm being judgmental or whatever, right? So you got this rational plan, right? But there's an underlying offense. There's an underlying emotion that has to be addressed, right? And the thing about emotions is that you can't think your way through them, you can't think your way out of them, and you can't think your way over them, right? The only way is to lay them out. That hurt me.
Mm-hmm.
My feelings was hurt, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we talk about I statements a lot, and I want to introduce the audience to what we call I statements, which is I felt hurt, not you hurt my feelings, right? Because we don't know what their intention is. We don't know the other person's intention. Now we can make it up all day long, Miss LaShay, right? We can say what you did. I can say why you did what you did. I can assume a whole lot. And we know what assume is, making an ass out of you and me, because
Right.
that gives you room to what?
Right.
Plead the fifth.
Right.
I ain't do that. You ain't got no proof, right? But what you can't tell me, Miss LaShay, is how I feel.
Right.
So I can always support myself with a nice statement. Well,
Right.
I felt very disrespected by what? By your tone, right?
Right.
By how you did this action, right? And here's another part too, is that we don't establish the boundary first.
Right.
So when we're trying to overcome emotional obstacles, right? When we know that I got all this emotion brewing in me and I've never approached anybody about this, right? Then I have to, one, tell my offense. You know what? When you do that, that's really hurtful to me. I feel hurt when you do that. So please don't do that again. So now I've told you that hurt me, and I've established the boundary,
Right.
right? Right. So now when you do it again, what do I have the benefit of doing, Miss LaShay?
You have the, well, I don't even know on that one. So when someone, you set the boundary and they violate the boundary,
And they violate the boundary.
that may not be a person that's really, someone who needs to be in your life if they can't obey your boundaries.
Right. Or now I can say, I can come now a little more in my emotion. I can now give a little bit more of my emotion to you. The first time, you didn't know that hurt my feelings, right? The
Mm-hmm.
first time, I'm just sharing, I'm making you aware, like, hey, that hurt my feelings. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? I'm just letting you know. So I'm taking a vulnerable stance then. So I'm kind of holding this emotion back, right? Now, the
Right.
second time, I can kind of stand up a little bit and let you feel a little bit of it, because no, we've had this conversation and I was very clear that that hurt my feelings. Now I can start to establish, if you do it again, right? Now I can start establishing some guidelines, right? Because I know you knew, you did it again. And now I can start to now establish, now if it happens again. But you know what we do? We'll just start that off in the beginning, like, oh, I'm cutting you off. Well, they didn't even
You
know
know what? I think
that
it's
that
interesting
was an
that you said
offense.
that because so that's why my answer was they may not be the person for your life because I
Yeah,
have
we can go to 0 to 100 and it gets the, you know.
right, because I established this boundary. I'll give you one chance. I'll give you a second chance, but I have become a believer in when someone tells you who they are, believe it. And I
Mm-hmm.
feel like when you learn the language, and that's a really big part of it too, because you have to develop the language to properly explain your feelings. And the
Mm-hmm.
feelings are something that we're born with as children. You feel when you're hungry, you feel the rumbles in your stomach, you cry when you're sad. So we experience these feelings before we receive the language for these feelings. So,
Mm-hmm.
and doing that self discovery and realizing what my boundaries are, when someone crosses it, I feel like you're telling me who you are. And if I've given you a few opportunities and I've explained, how it made me feel, and you're consistently doing this, my energy is important. My energy, my mental health, it's important. It's important to me, and you're showing me that it's not important to you. So, you know
Mm-hmm.
what? I can love you from a distance. And that is now our new boundary. I have to put myself behind this wall
Mm-hmm.
because you're not going to be considered. If you can't be considerate enough to be cognizant of my feelings that I have explained to you, you don't deserve my energy. You don't deserve my space. And I think it's very interesting that this conversation applies to all kinds of relationships. And for
Mm-hmm.
me, this happens so much with family. So much with family because they're the people you love the most. So when they do these
Mm-hmm.
things, it hurts the most. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
if you it's the love between you and family, you consider that to be like a given. You're
Mm-hmm.
supposed to love me. You're my mother, you're my brother, you're my father. Love is a given. You're supposed to. But then, and that's where the stories conversation comes from, because the story that I was telling myself, well, as a mother or father who loves me, then you should be considerate of my feelings. Then you should. And every time that they would show me that there's somebody different, retreat. I'm dialing back. Here goes that wall. Um, but I think step one is really having that language for it.
Mm-hmm.
And then I like that you gave another alternative. Like, hey, you know what? Next time you can actually push it a little bit further. Because again, I can't honestly say that always retreating has worked out necessarily the
Yeah.
best, because it becomes a cycle. Okay, you know what? I'll talk to you next year because 2023 will not be yours. So
Mm-hmm.
we'll try again later and hope for better results.
Yeah, so let me tell you what came up in my spirit when you said this, because I think that we have been taught so much to cut people off when they don't show up the way we want them to show up. And Miss Kiki says sometimes we shut down. Absolutely. And this is, and I'm glad you said that, because I think that is something to what Miss LaShay is saying, right? Like, I
Mhm,
just can't take it. Like, I'm done, right?
mhm.
And it's a learned behavior, like, because we don't know how to deal with you not showing up the way I want you to show up. I've given you and I've told you that this is hurting my feelings. I've told you how I want you to show up, and you continue to disrespect me and not show up how I want you to show up. And it's like, well, why you ain't showing up differently? Why
Right,
you continue to take the same conversation, and this person is showing you that they can only, you want them to show up 90%, but they're showing you that they're only 40% capacity. Why can't you just accept them at 40% capacity and y'all interact at 40%? Because that then will require who to change? LaShay to
right,
change.
right,
That will
right,
require Sheila to change. That will require me now to emotionally adjust, right?
right.
And this is the emotional regulation. So, oh wait, so you saying that I'm the problem? I'm not even using the word problem.
Right.
I'm saying that a lot of times we're expecting other people to do the very thing that we're not willing to do. Guess what? Everybody is not going to be able to meet you at your level and at your expectation. They
I
just
think that's
not.
the
They
key
don't
part
have
too, though.
the
Emo-
capacity.
they don't have the capacity, and I think that is a really big major key, because as a person who does try to seek for bettering myself, whether it's on education, it's on business, it's on emotional intelligence. So I know that I was a person who would, like, it was difficult for me to think of myself as a person who wasn't putting in the work. Like, I put in a lot of work. I spent a lot of money on this work. Like, I do that. But I wasn't being fully honest about the situation. I wasn't fully accepting the other person for who they are. I thought that I was, hey, you're showing me who you are. So as a result, retreat, I'm gone. That's not truly accepting who they are. That's saying you're not who I want you to
I
be.
want you to
So
be.
deuces.
Deuces.
I'm not having this conversation. So now when I'm dealing with someone, it's like, okay, this is who you are. And I realized what I was really angry about is that I allowed them to get into a space that they shouldn't have been, and not just in my
Yes.
life, but just, okay, I came to you as a confidant thinking that, we're in a better place, but you've shown me 6 times that you're not the confidant type. So why am I mad now that I tried to talk to you and you blew it out of proportion? You tried to make it about you. You've done it 100 million times. Why did I think this
Yeah.
time was anything different? And the answer is not just that I'm never going to talk to you again. No, I have to be honest about my role that I played in that. I should have never had that conversation with you. We could talk about the news, we could talk about YouTube, we could talk about the dogs, but we cannot talk about personal real life stuff that I have going on, because you don't have the bandwidth or the
Capacity.
ability to
Mhm.
have those conversations with me, and that's okay. And as
Yeah.
much as I thought that I was giving grace, I wasn't. I
Yeah.
really wasn't. I was not
Yeah.
giving grace to the people in my
Yeah.
life. And I'm glad that I see that now. But it takes a
Yeah.
change in that mindset, that it's not about just the work and what you do research outside, but
Yeah.
it's about sitting with yourself
The
too,
clicks
like
on the
truly,
inside.
right,
Right.
truly
Right.
sitting with you and ask these really uncomfortable questions, because they are
Questions. Yeah.
uncomfortable. The
Yeah.
question of, what am I doing wrong in this conversation? Well, nothing.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
I didn't say anything
She
wrong.
betrayed me. She did that to me. Like she knew I told her not to tell you that, or I told him not to take that. And it's like, yeah, but was that person vetted well? Like, why would you? You had a desire, right? That you wanted this person to meet, but you didn't qualify this person to even see if they were eligible to meet your desire. Why? Because we want immediate relief. It's like when we start dating a person and first date, they go out, oh, they look so nice, and oh, he smells so good. And now we start thinking marriage. What?
Right.
Like, oh, girl, I think I just met my husband. When? Today? When you just saw him? You talking about the dude you just went on a date with today? How did you get there? Why didn't you just think, oh my, I was so interested in him that I think I can go on another date. You
Right.
know what I mean? Like, but we will jump to our desire.
Right.
You know what I mean? When a
Right.
person gives us a glimpse, then we will jump to our personal desire and not to the reality of the person's capacity,
Right.
right?
Right.
Somebody said that was their representative. Yes, it was their representative, but it was their representative that met your desire,
Right.
right? Because the truth is that you are telling yourself something about their representative,
Right.
right? You have been captivated by their representative because you want that,
And I
right?
would
Because
say a lot of times
you
it's almost
want
like a
that. And
mirror,
here's
though. It's what you see in them that you yourself are looking for. Because so what I see in a lot of women is they tend to look
in
for
man,
projects.
in
And
man.
men, they tend to look for projects. They tend to look for the fixer upper that I can mold and make him into what I want him to be. So we
Or I can
act on,
change that thing.
right. And then we act on emotions of the small ember of what we see in really truly from ourselves in them. That's why you end up, dating somebody who act just like your father or act just like your mom, because they spoke to this small little piece that was inside of you that was reflected in this person, but you're ignoring the wholeness of this individual.
Yeah,
And you're believing that with time you
yeah,
will be able to change them, to mold them, to create your perfect partner. And
yes,
that is not
yes,
fair. That is not fair to
yes.
you. And that is not fair to
And
the
it's
other.
not fair to them, right? And so, and when we start to cut people off, right, because they're not meeting our desire, right, we're being unfair to ourselves because each time we do that, we're supporting the narrative that nobody will ever meet my desire.
Yes.
Nobody will ever be the person. So guess what? If I cut off enough people, guess what I'm gonna stop doing, LaShay? I'm gonna stop telling people my business. I'm gonna stop opening up, right? Because everybody that I done entrusted, right? I couldn't trust them. Like they went out and told, or they cheated, or they lied. So now, guess who I start to attract in my life?
Right.
People who lie. People who, and now when I do start to open up, guess who I got to get through first? The liars,
Right.
right? And at that point, I got to hold on to a stronger belief that I will meet them. I will meet that friend who's going to, who's going to hold my secrets. I'm going to meet that man who's going to love me. You know what I mean? Like, because you have, in a sense, built a wall now that you got to break down. But guess what we're waiting for? Somebody else to come tear a wall down that you built up,
Mm-hmm.
trying to protect you from people. Now that's the same wall that's preventing you from having the life that you desire and deserve. So the emotional obstacle that you're trying to get over is the emotional wall that you have built as a consequence of expecting other people to meet your desires.
Right.
And that ain't their responsibility. And like you said it so well, you want something and you want so bad for this person to have it, and that's a string story. That's
Mm-hmm.
like us when we was little, Christmas time. I remember, it was this gift under the Christmas tree. Mine was like the biggest gift. It was like a big old box, like a big one, right? And I used to tell my brothers, because I have three brothers, I got the biggest gift, I got the biggest gift, right? So it ended up being a chalkboard. Like, I was so mad. Like, oh, I
Yeah.
don't know what I thought it was, but when we unwrapped it, it was like a chalkboard. And I was like so disappointed. Like, I was so excited about this gift. And it's just a chalkboard. Like, it was like a marker, like a Barbie marker board or
Yeah.
whatever. And my brothers, they had like cars and like, but their boxes were small boxes, but their gift was so much more entertaining. Here I got like a chalkboard, and I done preached about this. I mean, I done teased them all, Christmas. Now, every Christmas after that, I was kind of anxious, like, what kind of gift I'm gonna get? Am I gonna be disappointed? Or, you know what I mean? Because I was so disappointed that Christmas, And we have to realize, where did I catch this narrative or this desire that has never been met before?
Right.
And each time that desire is getting stronger and stronger and stronger. And then with age, I'm getting 30, I'm getting 40, I'm getting, you know what I mean? Like, this desire is growing in you. So when you meet a person, it's like, like, are you the one? Are you the one? Are you the one? And all the time, it's like, no, you're the one. You're the one. You're the temperature. You just gotta set it, and then you gotta like be patient and meet people where they're at. I love Steve Harvey because he said, give people like time. Like, he gave the job analogy. When you go to work, you got 90 days that you got to be at the job, right? To prove that you can show up 90 days straight before you get benefits, whatever those benefits is, right? Now you can entertain them how you want to entertain them, right? But at least let them show up consistently for an amount of time before, you know, we deem them, you
Right.
know what I mean, a certain way. Now, even if you decide to give them whatever you're going to give it to them because you want to, not because of who you think they are. You know what I mean? And
I
sometimes
think
we
that's
just
so
give too
interesting.
much to people, huh?
No, I was saying I think that's so interesting. Like I love that you use that example because it acts so what you just said is so incredibly true, but we also do it in other ends of our mindset. So here's my Christmas story. So it's so funny that you said that. Christmas time, what I wanted so bad, all the kids for years had those electric cars or trucks, and I wanted one so bad. My parents had to save up in order for them to get me the electric car. So when they got that for me for Christmas, because that anticipation had built up, I was over the moon excited. Here's the thing. By the
Mhm.
time they got it, I was a good 5 and I was a tall 5, might have been 6. I'm talking knees in my chest, but baby, you couldn't tell me nothing because I finally got what I really wanted. And I'm looking crazy, just riding up and down the driveway, excited as all get out. But that thing that I wanted so bad no longer fit that stage in life. And we do that with people like you just described. Like this, I'm 20 and I know I want to be married. Marriage is exactly what I want. You're the guy I'm dating. So we're in this for marriage. Like that's the purpose. I haven't qualified you. I already
Yeah.
started. I came into this relationship saying, okay, you're somebody I can marry, but that's backwards. That's backwards.
Mhm.
This person hasn't qualified themselves. They haven't expressed that they deserve to be in that space. And I haven't given them time to do that. I'm operating with the expectation that you are my husband and I am waiting, and it ends up being you waiting for them to prove otherwise. And then again, retreat. I'm just going to leave this relationship, but I'm retreating because you're not living up to my expectation of what a husband is. Instead of me acknowledging that, hey, just because this is what I want in life, that's not something that I can just put on this other person because again, what you think that you want in that stage in life may not fit that stage in
That
life for
stage
you.
of life.
I had like a piece of paper almost of just this is what life is going to look like, this like we all do. I feel like you're going to be married by 25 and have 3.2 kids or 3.5 kids and a house
What's the
and a car.
0.5 part?
Statistics, okay? It's just that cookie cutter white picket
Yeah,
fence.
yeah,
Like
yeah,
we are
yeah,
going to
yeah.
have that, and we're looking. Hey, are you that guy? Are you the guy that has the consistency that I think that I'm looking for?
Right.
Can I envision my life with you? But that's the wrong way to go about it. That's me trying to put my vision of the world on you.
Mhm,
And
mhm.
you can't make anybody, I say in business all the time, you can't make anybody buy anything. So if you can't even make anybody buy anything, how you going to change somebody's whole existence as a human, your quote unquote project man or project woman, into this whole other person? That's
Yeah.
insane. But we do
Mhm.
that so
But
much.
we do it so much. So I want to say this because Dale said 90 days in a relationship is different than a job.
Mhm.
Absolutely, it is. So, but here's the thing, the job is still expecting you to show up, right? The job is still expecting you to show up. They're going to pay you, they're going to give you everything, right? That
Mhm.
you going they're just not giving you the benefits and the title of whatever that is, but you still have the same expectations. And I'm saying at that point, if you're in a relationship with somebody, you could still intermingle with
Mhm.
that individual the way you want to. Like you could still have emotional, you can still be emotional with them, but don't go and attach your life or your future, you know what
Right.
I mean,
Right.
in a way that like after a month you don't know, like, oh, like she said, like you're coming in like this person gonna be my husband, I'm looking for a husband, I'm, you know, we've been together now for a month. You my
Right.
husband, you know what I mean? Or
Almost
even
like
with
a play.
friendships,
You're
like
just wanting
let
someone to
that kind
be
of
that character.
organically
Right.
grow. Listen, this is the thing about relationships that's very different about life. In life, um, so with our degrees, right? You know that you got to work, 4 years to get a degree. If you work hard enough, 3 years. So you got the patience in your mind, right? That I got to take these classes before I get this degree, right? I got to apply to just say, well, if I get this degree, then I know this is going to happen. Like we have these trigger points and we know from this trigger, this is going to happen, right? So we have a set of criteria, right? In your personal life is different,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like, because in life, it's like you're shooting out like that, like you're going after something. In your personal life, life is coming to you. So you have to be the thing that you want, right? And then life starts to come into you like that. So if you want a healthy relationship, that's not, oh, the healthy relationship is out there. The marriage is out there. The wife that I want to become is out there. And I need to do these things to become her. It's I am, right? I am a wife. I am this thing, right? And then now, as life starts to pull into me, now I vet that, right? Like now I get to establish my voice. Like, oh, well, you're not looking for marriage. Well, you're not looking for me, right?
Mm-hmm.
We could be cool, but I'm a wife. So, you know what I mean? Now we can set up parameters because life is pulling into me
Mm-hmm.
in that way. That's a very different than what we were taught, right? In academics and life in general. And we just have this thing like when I get there, this thing will happen. And it's like, no, when you become the change you want to see in the world, the thing will start to happen for you. Okay. And that is a very different learned acceptance. You know what I mean? And
Mm-hmm.
it's like if we don't accept that that's the reality of the personal side of life, we're going to continue to chase life like we're chasing degrees, like we're going after degrees, like we're going after careers, like we're going after customers and things like that. When your side of life should is your magnet.
Mm-hmm.
You are a magnet. You are an energy field. You are drawing to you. You are creating. You know what I mean? You have a power and authority in your voice, in your presence. And so you have to be a thing. You have to let that thing kind of like exude out of you, your fragrance, right? And these emotional obstacles are getting in the way of your fragrance. So now you don't start to attract the bees. The bees can't smell your honey, right? Because it's blocked. Because you have these narratives that are stopping the bees from smelling your honey. And your honey is your desires, right? And it's
Mm-hmm.
being tainted by old experiences. Does that make sense?
It does. It makes sense. And I think when you were talking, what it really made me think about is that the relationship really starts with yourself. It starts with you. Like that's the good relationship that you need to be focused on so that you can attract all those things that you want. I think I can say what it looked like for me. So I, from a young age, always saw my quote unquote saw myself as a wife, but I can wholeheartedly 100% admit that I had not done the thought work of what that meant. What is a
Mhm.
wife? What does that look like? I went with the mindset that, well, when I find a husband, I will get to experience what it is to be a wife. If I'm already one, then when I get a husband, it's just whatever I'm at that time and I will get better at it. But that's the opposite way of thinking about it off of what you're saying. You should be, if you're a wife, be a wife in your mind, in your spirit, so that you can find the husband that is looking for that the husband that is looking for, you know, that stage of you in your life.
Yeah,
It
yeah,
can't be the idea of just a wife, a blanket statement that you came up with when you were a teenager, or maybe
yeah,
even younger than that. I am a quote unquote wife. Well, who's a wife? She's married to a husband. That's
yeah,
nothing. That's nothing. I've done no real work into that. And what I learned is that I had to kind of sit with myself and really look at that. Okay, like as a wife, what would my responsibilities be? What does a wife act like? How? And I love that you said be the person you want to find, because that's a part of one of my favorite songs, Life Jennings Statistics. And that's what he says in the chorus. You have to be the person that you want to find. And that is true. If I want
yeah,
to find a husband that meets my needs, I have to be the wife. I have to
yeah,
be that
right,
already, and not just in title, in
right.
behavior, in action, so that they can feel that energy. Like you said, they can smell that honey off of me. But just
Yeah,
giving myself a title and saying I am this thing, even though there is power in words, but the Bible says faith without action is dead.
yeah, it's dead.
So you can't.
And not just being the wife though. I mean, being the daughter, right?
Right.
We only want to be the daughter when the right mamas show up, right? We
Everything.
only want to be the sister when the right brother show up. We don't want to be the brother when the right sister show up, right? We only want to be the friend when the right friend show up. Like again, but these are titles that you hold, and it's not predicated on when the right person show up. Because what is a daughter? My mom has mental health issues, right? My mom is not always present. She has never been an emotionally available mother. But as a daughter, what is my responsibility? Do I shun my mother off, right? That's not my role as a daughter. My role as a daughter is to love my mother unconditionally, no matter her state. Now, is that hurtful? Does that cause me some emotions? Yes, but I'm a daughter, regardless of who my mother is. I'm still a daughter. Now I can have some emotional baggage, right, about who my mother should have been, right? And I can tell myself some narratives that will prevent me from showing up as a daughter for my mother, right? As an adult daughter for my mother, right? And now, but I'm responsible as a daughter because I still hold the title of a daughter right now. There is boundaries I put up with my mom. There are things that I put up with my mom, but I'm still a daughter to my mother. In her emotionally availabilityness, if that's a word, you know what I mean? In her dis-ease or whatever, I still have a responsibility as a daughter. You know, I have a brothers. All my brothers are different, but I'm still a sibling to each brother. I have a brother I'm very close to. I have a brother that I'm very distant from. You know what I mean? But they're all my brothers. I'm still a sister though. Does that make sense?
It
Right.
does.
So what is my role as a sister? Right. I'm not going to, because this brother gets along, well, you get a yes. And because me and you don't get along, then you like, no, because you not showing up how I want you to show up. Because when the pearly gates open, right, if there's a such thing, it ain't gonna be like, well, Sheila, how did you handle your brother? Well, you know, he was nice to me, so I was nice to him. But you know, this one over here that was acting, you know what I mean?
It's easy to be nice to somebody who's being nice to you. It's difficult
My point
to
exactly.
show
You know what
love
I
when
mean?
someone is acting
Yeah,
something or other.
yeah.
That is definitely true.
Friends, you know, friends the same way. If you want to be, we always talk about, oh, you know, no new friends, no best friends. But the reason we don't have friends is because we sometimes don't know how to be a friend. We don't know how to charge it to people's head and not their hearts, right? We don't know how to sometimes be forgiving, right? We'll forgive our man before we forgive our friend. Our man can cheat, lie, steal, you know what I mean? Do all this stuff, but then your friend misuse you one time and you cut her off.
Right.
How? You know
Guilty.
what I
I've done that. I've
mean? You
definitely done
know,
that.
how
I've
can you do
done
this with a
that.
woman that you didn't grew up with? Y'all done went to school together. Y'all done, you know, rode the same bike, and she did something. And I'm not saying what she did was right,
Right.
right? You know what I mean? But you didn't cut her off. Don't want to speak to her no more. She all type of sluts, you know, bees all out her name, right? But
Right.
this man who didn't hurt your feelings, who didn't, you know You know what I mean? His intentions, and again, I'm not there to say that's right or wrong, but I'm saying how you comparing the two.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like if you a friend, then be a friend. If you gonna be his woman, then be his woman. But stand in both titles in integrity. You know
Right.
what I mean? Don't choose one over the other because you know, like,
Right.
oh, because I'm gonna be a better woman than I am gonna be. You know, that's a title too that you're responsible for. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I think that's interesting. And so work is relationships as well. And I think it's funny how we will take so much crap from a job. And even that, we're taking more from that job. Why? Because, well, that's just how the boss is.
Well,
That's
because
just
I'm
how
getting paid.
right.
That's the
I'm getting
check.
paid. And we will accept all of those things and we deal with that job for what it is, who it is, but then our own
20, 30 years.
friends, years, and will clock in, clock out, will sacrifice things that they want to do in their life with their loved ones for this job. But when it comes to our loved ones, we don't give them that grace. We're quick to essentially, that's judging. When you're just walking away, when you just go into retreat, you're judging. You're saying you're not good enough. You're not good enough. That's the
You're
hard
not meeting my
conversation.
needs. Yeah.
Exactly. You are not meeting my standards and I'm walking away. And that's just it, because you don't even deserve to be in my life because you're not perfect. That is essentially what I had said to in my, without even knowing that I was saying that. That's the way I was behaving. That's the way I was behaving for a long time until I really started to, you know, just to ask myself questions about, well, how do I really feel in different situations, and where is this really coming from, and what does this really mean? And it's not easy, and you don't automatically know it. And I'm so thankful that you have this relationship challenge that you're doing this month, because I think in everything that you just said, you showed how this is a complicated situation, and not just
It's
romantic relationships,
complicated.
and,
It's
and not
not.
just family relationships. It's literally our entire lives. And for something that is such a big part of us, human interaction, you will die for the most part without human interactions. Like, it is our lifeblood, and yet we don't know how to have them successfully. We have them, like you have them, whether you're investing this time into getting the language or not, you still have relationships. But a lot of these outcomes can actually, that are turning out negative, can be avoided. That's not to say that the person no longer does bad things, or they don't do things that quote unquote hurt you. But when you accept people for who they are and deal with them accordingly, you don't put yourself in those same situations. When a person shows me, now the way I look at it, when a person shows me that you're not a confidant, well, you're not that friend, and that's okay.
And
If
that's okay.
to the lunch friend, that's okay. That is your role. That is what you do. If you're the person that, you know what, you just a little bit too much, but you are a person who needs someone to be able to talk to, you know what, I can be that for you. I can be that for you, because my presence may actually be a gift to you and help you on your spiritual journey. So why would I take that away just because you can't be my confidant friend, or my go to lunch friend, or my go to a networking friend? You know, it's okay that you're not my everything person. And it's the same thing with our family and friends. And I'm excited to hear more about what you plan on talking about with this challenge, because I know those are some of the topics that we've talked about, but I'm very excited for that coming up this month.
Yeah, just going more into the things we need to stop doing, LaShay, like today, you know, stop feeling like you're not good enough, right? I think that was a great way to bring it in, because again, you are good enough to hold these titles as mother, as daughter, mother, you know, son, wife, mate, right? But with that comes a responsibility. I love talking about relationships. I told the group today, relationships is, they're so complicated, they have so many intersections, that I don't like to talk about them publicly, right? Because each person has their own intersection, they have their own narrative, they have their own dynamics. And to say a broad statement, I remember when I was in my complication, right, I would hear something and be like, you know, somebody talking to me, and I'm like, well, can I pick up the phone? Can you tell him that? You know, like, because I felt like that information wasn't for me, like, you know. So I'm really trying to be as general as possible, but I did add on like a Saturday I can go live. So I'm encouraging the group to, you know, one, people who have not signed up to the challenge, make sure that you go to
Yeah. Tell them a little bit more
www.sheilalittle.com.
about what it is, what the challenge is going to be.
Okay.
Yes.
The
Yes.
challenge is 12 things you need to stop doing to really start, sustain, and manage and sustain healthy relationships, right? It's about you and what you need to do to be the change that you need to see, the rising tide that's going to lift the boat for your relationship, to really start to take your dis-ease and understand why there's a separation. Why am I doing what I'm doing? Why is my relationships looking like that? So every day I come on as between 7 and 7:30, and I provide some type of advice, some tip, something that you need to stop doing in 2023, so you can ultimately have the relationship that you desire and deserve, either in your intimate relationships with your family or in your business.
And
Did I
I'll say
miss anything,
this.
Miss LaShay?
No, you didn't. But I'll say this. Here's the really great thing about this challenge, of what I received from the one you did last month. So last month you were kind of focused on just in general when it comes to life, things that you need to stop. A lot of this stuff we're talking about having the language to talk about your feelings, but you don't know what you don't know, right? So I walked through life for a really long time thinking I was conscious, thinking I was generous, thinking I was giving grace, thinking I was being this person. And I had no sounding board. I had no guidance or coach or anyone to check me. I didn't. I didn't. And a lot of times, when we have this idea, because I myself was that person, we have this idea that we already got that down pat. Like, my life looks pretty good. It's not about your life being tragic or you being in necessarily abusive relationships, right? Every relationship that you have in your life can be improved. And I think we all have to take that time to really, really and truly look at our actions and ask these important questions. And I know for last month, that's what the challenge did. It kind of brought up these topics and these ideas that allowed me to kind of sit and think like, do I do that actually? Am I being as gracious as I thought I was being? Am I really, am I forcing my opinions on other people? Because I hate when that's done to me. And I thought that I was making conscious decisions not to do that, but I was unconsciously being exactly who I didn't want to be. I'm excited on the relationship side to see what comes up in my spirit when I'm thinking about these things that you bring up, and you are holding us accountable. So I think the relationship challenge is going to be really good. But we've got an amazing question over here too. You want
What's
to go
the
ahead and read that
question?
one? It was the do.
Okay, Kiki, do we stay and sacrifice in these relationships that are not going good for us because of our emotional obstacles? No, no. So do we stay and sacrifice in these relationships? No. So one, I don't like the word sacrifice, because I feel like there's a sacrifice that already has been made for us. If you're a Christian, I just believe that there's already a sacrifice made for us. However, I would say that is a question that's like question 3. So after you've done your work, right? After you've gone and you've worked with the coach, or you've aligned and what you want from a relationship, and then you've had that conversation with the individual, and they're showing you, right, this is an intimate relationship, you're with a partner, right, and you've done your work and you've got clarity and direction about where you want to go, right. And now this person is showing you that they're not trying to go where you're trying to go, then no, you don't stay. But if you haven't done work and you're pointing the finger saying, well, I just can't be here no more because I'm unhappy, then I'm 90% of the time, if you haven't done some work, then you may run into more unhappiness, if that makes sense, because there's still some areas that need to be fixed.
Right.
Does that make sense? Right.
So
So a
I
lot of
think,
times we will end a relationship because we're unhappy with the individual, because the individual is not doing anything. but truly they're not doing anything because we're not requiring them to. And we don't know what to require that individual to do because we haven't done the work on ourselves to even know what we want and truly desire, to even give them the boundaries, the language, the requests from them to even level them up. Like I said, a rising tide lift all boats. Now, when you start to lift, if his boat got a hole in it or if her boat got a hole in it, then she not gonna lift, and then that's when you let her sink, right? But if you haven't done your work yourself, right, then that's a hard kind of question to answer and say, well, go on to leave them, right?
Right.
Because there's still work that needs to be done,
Right.
on both sides.
So I can give an example from my personal life of that, and hopefully this helps. So I can put into real life practice what I feel like you're saying. So for example, with my relationship, I'm engaged now, very happy. I love my guy. I feel like he is truly my life partner. Now, early on in the relationship, it was not that way. It was not that way. It would be a lot of arguing. It would be a lot of back and forth. And at that time, I was of the mindset, it's you. You're being very, we love the word toxic. You're being very toxic. And that was the story that I was telling myself. We had a time of separation. That gave me some time to actually grow, to sit with myself, to really think about things and ask questions. And what I realized is that I had a major role to play in a lot of those arguments. I was not as easy to deal with. There was a lot of accusations. Well, are you this? Well, who is that? Well, I bet this. And I was putting my fears on him. And he was reacting off of my fears, which will force that to become a self-fulfilling prophecy. If you're constantly accusing someone of cheating, it may not be but a matter of time before that actually becomes a thing, because you're putting that energy out, and it actually may be what attracted you to that person in the first place. So when you sit and you ask those tough questions, are we having issues because of me putting the way I see things on you? Really think about that. Now, when we're talking about abuse, then that's a no-brainer. We're not talking about those type of situations. Is he abusing me because of something to me? No, physical violence is physical violence, and we are not here for that. But when it comes to a lot of the relationships in our lives, we have a role that we are playing in that relationship. Ask yourself the question, are you cognizant of all the different ways that you may be adding to these situations in your life? I had to realize that I wasn't easy to deal with. I can honestly say that I was not easy to deal with. I had a whole lot of opinions. I was not given grace, and I was quick to accuse. And I would just live in that in my head. So any little thing that the person is like, yep, see, I knew it. Yep, see, I knew it. Whether it was reality or not, I was already jumping on that bandwagon. And that, you know, that how is the other person supposed to deal with that if they have to live with the person that you have in your head of them, good or bad? That's a heavy burden to weigh. How can a relationship be healthy or happy when you're literally bringing that level of baggage, not to mention the other person is doing the same as well?
Right. In that type of relationship, in our relationships with our parents, in our relationship with our siblings, I think that we need to have spaces where we can talk and grieve the idea, especially in those bloodline relationships. We need a safe space to be able to communicate who we desire this person to be. And then so we can accept, because we all desire these people to be 100%, but then they showing up 20 and 30%, right? And that can be harmful or hurtful to say, you only 30%. But if I go to an objective person and talk about how I feel about, my mom being 30%, right? Now I'm able to deal with my mom at 30% because I've dealt with my emotions that I had about it. But if I never deal with the emotions that my mom is functioning at 30%, guess who's getting the brunt of that emotion? My mom, right? Now, mind you, she only giving me 30%. So can she even now, guess what? Can we even have healthy conversations? Can I even expect her to understand my pain and what I'm going through? So this is another thing that we have to understand. So I don't know, when you say sacrifice these relationships, are you just talking about relationship with your mate or just relationship with family members or friends? Because nobody's perfect. And as we go through life, we do need places like coaches and, and therapists and things like that to really assist us, because that is your responsibility, right? To cleanse yourself so that your fragrance will be smelled. So then in your second part of your life, you can start developing mothers, right? So I have a mother that's not my mom, but she's 100% representative of a mother for me, right? I have, my fragrance is enough where I've attracted friends, right? That may not be, I still hang out with my childhood friends, right? But the friends I have as an adult woman, I don't have to not be cool with my childhood friends, right?
Right.
It's just a difference. But I've cleaned out so much of that out of me, right? By getting help, by being able to talk, right? By overcoming these emotional obstacles. And they still come up, right? When I'm dealing with my mom. But I know that I'm going to talk to my mom. I'm able to communicate with her about some things and communicate with my dad and communicate with people about that hurt my feelings or whatever, right? But I know I can't give her, if I'm a gallon and she's a quart, I can't give her the whole gallon, right? And that may be emotional for me. I need to talk about that. I probably can't talk about that to her, but I still need to talk about that. I need to get that out of me. And so many of us is holding on to that because we have no place to give it,
I
no
think that's
place
where
for
the sacrifice
compassion.
part comes from. I think that's the part
Yeah,
they're saying. So do you
yeah.
just live without that? And I think what you're saying is no. You don't live without, if you need a person to be a confidant, no, you don't just live without that, but you understand that that person is not the one you go to for that. That's not, that y'all don't have that type of a relationship.
Yeah.
But we got a few other really good comments and questions over here too.
Yeah. So Dale said, but where we from, a lot of minorities don't know about coaches or counselors. So great comment, which is why I'm doing, and I'm glad that LaShay said that too, which is why I'm offering like the 31-day Stop It Now challenge, the free Stop It Now workshop, the Stop It Now challenge for relationships, right? Because I do believe you only know what you know until you know something different, right? And so making people aware of issues, right, can really help them to see like, oh, it is help out here. Oh, that is an issue. Oh, I may need to talk to somebody about that, right? And I may not be the person that may, you know, I could be the person that you come seek the help from, but I could be the person that make you start to think like, oh, this is something that I want to go, explore a little bit more. So you're right, we may not have been a culture that had sought out help, but I think that we can be a culture that starts to, right? When we start giving ourselves permission to, you know, be generous and have some compassion for ourselves and really understand that if we want to see a different world and experience different things, then we got to be able to change on the inside. Right.
I completely agree. And I'm glad
Any
that he
other
brought
ones?
it up because it definitely is not something that's very popular in the culture. And I'm glad that you are bridging that gap because these are very important conversations that need to be had that prior to have not been had. And I'm sorry, but I do feel like a lot of the quote unquote, a lot of what's going on in the culture that is toxic, in my personal opinion, because it's not a whole lot of people giving tools of how to fix it. They're just pointing out problem, 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 problem. But how do we fix it? How do we grow? How do we come together? How do we do better? And the Stop It Now relationship challenge is meant to do exactly that. And it's to be your introduction into having those deep conversations with yourself and others. So make sure that you guys share the Elevate in Life Facebook group, share it with your friends, your family. This is a blessing meant to be shared. This is not meant just for us to hold. Sheila has spent years learning, working with people, and developing this methodology. And she's literally giving it away and sharing it for free. So be a blessing and just share it, because it is conversations that we need to have with each other. Like, since I've been working with Sheila, I actually do have conversations with my friends and family about a lot of these topics. And what do you think about it? And get these different perspectives, because our culture does not just have to be this level of toxicity that only has conversations about the Kardashians or whatever the latest craziness is, or whatever is going on to the news. There are elevating conversations that we can have that feed into our spirits, into us growing and becoming better individuals, better as a community. If we want a better community, we have to build a better community, and it starts with conversations like this, with podcasts like this, with Facebook groups like the Elevate in Life with Shiela Little group. These are where we can have, this is the safe place where you can have those conversations and be the change that you want to see.
You want to see in the world. And we have to get back in touch with our emotions. We have truly come from a culture where you couldn't cry.
Yes.
I don't know about y'all, but we only have two emotions in our house: anger and fear, right? If you got too happy, you got to whoop it.
Shut up before I whoop you again. Like, how that makes sense.
It's like, and so we really have to. And then when we start talking about relationships is nothing but emotions. I say we're in a relationship with everything. You're in a relationship with your clothes, with your jewelry, with your car, with your shoes, with everything that you have in life. You are in relationship with it, right? Now, how you're in relationship with it is how you determine it. But the most important relationships is with other human beings, right? But these are the most difficult relationships. And because they create some friction, right? Because they create some disdain, we feel like, oh, well, that wasn't meant to be. Well, like I shared before, iron sharpens iron. When I first heard that drop into my spirit, I tell you, I saw two sharp swords. Iron sharpening iron, two sharp swords. What did you see, Miss LaShay, when somebody say iron sharpens iron? Yeah. Did you think two sharp swords?
Yeah.
No, Sheila, that's not what that is. One sword just turned into an iron file, and like then the sword started to sharpen itself on the file. Because how can two sharp things sharpen each other? It can't, right? You need some roughness to sharpen the sharpened thing, right? So in life, it is the resistance that's sharpening us. It is going through the tough things that's going to make your voice stronger, that's going to make you more emotionally intelligent. And we talk about our children being fragile. A lot of the fragility in our children is because as adults, we don't know how to manage our emotions, and we're not having conversations with our kids to sit down and talk about the emotional things in life, the feeling part of life, and giving everybody permission to sit in their own feelings and being okay with that. I'm okay if you don't feel like you like me today. That's fine, right? That's okay, because you'll like me tomorrow, and I'm gonna be okay with that. You know what I mean? Yeah. And coming back to love and centering ourselves back in love. So again, make sure you go to SheilaLittle.com, join that join that Stop It Now relationship challenge, right? Make sure you continue to like, share, and comment on this post. Join the Elevate in Life Facebook group. Make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel so you can continue to get those alerts and shares. I thank you, Miss LaShay. You always make the conversation so interesting. Y'all give us some hearts and some likes and things like that. And we'll see you guys next week. If you want to be a part of the conversation, make sure you show up in the Elevating Life group at 9:00 on Wednesday.
Yes.
Anything you want to say?
No, you did an amazing job, and thank you so much for having me. And I look forward every week to being able to be here with you guys. And I will be there in the morning seeing what gems you're going to be dropping, and to allow me to have the rest of my day marinating on that.
We'll see you guys next week.
Bye.
See you later.